Go. So remember your color tower. A lot of people last week did it upside down. The color tower. Remember, these boxes should be on the top. This represents the top of your tower. I don't know why it got lighter. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the white. Remember, you need your white first to establish the lightest value of your tower. So you want to have white to establish the lightest part of your tower. And I recommend, I'm pulling out some of this white because I have too much. I recommend that you guys work. A lot of you were pulling your paint to the middle. Stay here. You know, you need enough paint to paint the entire tower. So if you guys look up here, you know, use the little pool in the tower, okay? I mean, and in the paint palette. So you're going to take a tiny bit of red, and you want to mix it into that white. And we're making the lightest tint of red. We're doing the primary red first. And I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of red so that it becomes the lightest tint of red, which looks pink, light pink. It should not be white. We don't ever use pure white in a painting. We use it to make our colors the lightest hue possible. So this is the top of my tower. The next step, I'm going to add a little bit more red. And if you're having difficulty seeing if it's dark enough, remember, always go slow because it's always easier to adjust and add more red. But a really easy thing to do is make a dot and check. And always make sure that you're pushing your brush down to wipe off any excess paint on the top of your brush. Because a lot of times that can change the level. So I'm just going to make a little tiny dot and make sure, and that looks darker, which is good. So now I'm going to paint. I'm going to paint my first block, and it's a tad bit darker. And then I'm going to scoop some of this paint out, and I'm going to bring it over. I'm going to use this one because it's the cleanest. I'm going to bring it over here because I'm going to be working on, this is where I'm going to keep my toning area. So the whole idea when I'm toning, I'm adding a small amount of the complement, which the complement to red is green. So I want to make sure that on this one where I'm adding toning, I want to make sure that I'm not making it look green. If it looks green, that means I added too much of the complementary color. I just want to add enough so it looks darker, like it's in shadow. So I just took some green and I mixed it into my reserve pool. And I'm using a different brush also because I want to keep that separate. And then I'm going to paint that over here. So now it looks like it's still that same color, but it's in shadow. And you want to make sure that you're using enough paint. And then just leave this here. So you don't see the back. The next thing I'm going to do is go back to my original paint, and I'm going to add more red to that color. So it makes a slider increment. And again, I want to check and make sure, and I think that needs to be a little darker, no big deal. I'm just going to get a little bit more red so I can make it a little bit more darker. Remember to push all your paint down off the paintbrush So always make your adjustments and make sure that it's getting darker. So now I'm painting that next level over here. And I'm going to leave my brush over there. And I was going to show you guys this time. I'm going to take instead of adding that same color, if it's easier, just add a little bit more, the same amount of red that you did there over here to your complement color. So I can just make that darker so it matches. Did you guys see that, how I did that? All I did is add a little bit more red and maybe a little bit more green if you need to make that color darker. I think maybe that might be an easier way for you to do it. There's in life and in art, there's several different ways to achieve the same effect. So I can show you 2 different ways. Anytime you need to make an adjustment, you can. I just noticed I need to make an adjustment on my Does anybody need help? We're all doing all right? What do you need help with? Who said that? You did? Who? Oh, you did? Okay. What's that? This is right. Yeah, you take this color. Yeah, mix it up more. Yeah. You're taking this color and you're adding green to it. So it's still on this side, it's this color, and a little bit of green. Yeah. So on this side, the same color is a little bit of green. Make them dark. Make them darker. Your orange is not the orange, it's yellow orange. You need to have more red to it. I was right. Looks good. So make sure your oranges are orange and not yellow orange. Okay? So, yeah, you don't need that much blue. You're fine. It's okay, you didn't mess up. That's why we're practicing this stuff now, guys. It's just paint. This is not even due today, so just take your time. This is why we're practicing, so you learn. Once you get accustomed and used to it, it's going to be a piece of cake. I promise. You just got to be patient. You're learning something you haven't done before, so it can be challenging at first. And you can paint over anything, so I just painted over that top one because it wasn't dark enough. Okay? Everything can be fixed, which is nice. And another trick I was going to point out is that if you're not sure if it's getting dark enough, First of all, make sure, I see some people are not mixing all their paint together. When you're mixing your paints, make sure you're scraping everything off the edge, and then you're also pushing everything down. Because sometimes you get paint trapped at the top of your brush, and then when you start to paint, the trapped paint on top will come down. If you have white, it's going to make your paint lighter. If you have red, it's going to make it uneven and darker. So to avoid that mess up, always make sure you're mixing your colors right. And avoiding water. If you notice, I haven't used water at all unless I'm changing my color on my brush. So my paint is nice, even and smooth, and I don't see any paper underneath my paint. And so I'm going to go back over to my tone. And I added a little bit more red, and I'm going to add a little bit more green. And I just keep going. I just keep adding red. Your pure red with no white or black should be the second to the last on the sheet. Second to the last on the sheet. No. I'm sorry. So I thought you guys make sure to bring aprons or an oversized shirt. Yeah, it'll wash off as soon as you get home. As soon as you get home, put it in the wash. Think they're ever gonna fix this intercom? It sounded really sick this morning. It was funny. It was like, woo! I didn't know if that was just in my room or the whole school, but it was like, it was really funny. I started cracking up. Because it kept like, I don't know if it did the same thing upstairs, but it was like turning off and then. They aren't? Oh. See, it sounds okay now. I don't know what's going on, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure they'll send out an email and say what's happening, but I know the intercom has been broken. Yellow is the hardest. That's why we're doing it last. Yellow is the most. Yellow is the most transparent, and then it also with pigment color with this pigment it looks green when you mix like awful greens and browns when you mix the violet and the black into it. Yes, yellow's the hardest. Yellow's the hardest to do value increments with too. Just heads up. I think I need to borrow some green from somebody. Yes, of course. Right there. Let me finish this one. There we go. Oh no, that's pure red. That's pure red. Good. Yes. Yeah. That's good. That's why you're doing this to help fine tune it. You get some more paint. You get some more paint. There you go. Beautiful. So a lot of you don't realize that what you're doing right now is helping fine tune the instrument. You're doing good, but you need more paint. So use these to keep warm. Like instead of this is harder. Mix your color in here. Now it's helping you more color. Okay? But your colors look good. And your colors look good too. You just gotta use more paint. Don't be afraid. Yeah, I know you're not used to it. So this is red with what? On this side, remember this is the same color, but with a little bit of a complement. Yep. And then this one is going to be red and black. And then this one's going to be what? Yep, you got it. Okay, this is the same color. All of your paintings are going to look like that. You don't practice. That's why you practice now. You get it. And then my last layer for here is red and black. Drop out? What are you talking about? That would make me so sad. No way. I met your parents. Your parents are on you. There's no way they'd let you drop out. What's the college talk? I'm going to buy a house and pay for it for 30 years for college, and I'm not going to afford anything, and I'm too dumb to get into college. You are not too dumb to get into college. You're not too dumb to get into college. So what are you asking? It's just black and red. I know, but that's not. You need more. You need a lot of. Just put more red, probably. Remember, if you want to bring an extra change of clothing or shoes, that's a good idea so you don't get your stains